Welcome to another Crypto Spender podcast news episode. So, as usual, we'll go right in. First up, phone numbers becoming backdoor to crypto accounts. Phones are really becoming a prolific way for bad actors to access your crypto account. They will be relentless with the agent that is on the line with them and social engineer their way into accessing your account and changing your passwords. So remember to use two-factor and even use different emails for crypto, and if possible, in an entirely different phone. Billionaire Ayre is building a 100 million Bitcoin Cash resort in Antigua. So a controversial figure, Ayre, is building a resort. Bitcoin Cash seems to be the focus on more external hype than tech these days. And however, a stunt like this just might result in the resort being an interesting novelty for the rich to waste money on. Bank buys stake in blockchain startup SETL. So Citi bought into SETL because it facilitates movement of cash and other assets between two parties on a permissioned ledger. So possibly a bank-controlled competitor to Ripple and any other platform that aims to be a solution for banks. Israel confirms it will tax Bitcoin as property. In Israel, the capital gains portion of crypto will be subject to 20 to 25% capital gains tax. And if this is done in relation to a business, then an additional 17% in value-added tax will be added. Overall, it seems like an excessive amount of taxation, and Europeans should hope that they do not follow Israel's lead on the VAT portion of this scenario, because it's a very intensive tax for businesses, even if the individual tax is lower than the US, it seems. Bitcoiner faces charges after selling BTC to an undercover cop. Morgan Raccoons was arrested by law enforcement, and the law side of this story claims that he, as in Morgan Raccoons, knowingly sold Bitcoin to a buyer who was using it for marijuana-related activities. In this case, specifically hash oil. Raccoons claims that it was for a medical marijuana machine and not the substance itself, and that he shouldn't be prosecuted because he is just a party who sold Bitcoin to someone who bought this thing. And the primary charge here is being an unlicensed money transmitter also, which this is a charge that only occurs in some states because a lot of more pro-Bitcoin blockchain states have already kind of made away with this money transmitter clause for Bitcoin and crypto. Raccoons believes he was specifically targeted because his association with the US government and military and his startups. And it does seem a little suspicious that since this was only a one-time transaction that also occurred last year, that he is being targeted as a money transmitter, which most of the other money transmitters arrests were people who were regular sellers of Bitcoin rather than a one-time deal. South Korea investigates cryptocurrency regulator's death. Named Jung Ki-jun, those near him claim he was under very high stress. And I do imagine that dealing with the fanatical crypto Koreans would put someone in a very high stress situation. It is also interesting to see if there was foul play, even if it seems very unlikely. But I'm sure a lot of people thought that could be one of the causes, considering how fanatical the Koreans do get. But for now, it seems like it was just a lot of stress that did him over the edge. Wyoming House approves utility token securities exemption bill. So this bill includes that the token cannot be sold as an investment, but must be able to be traded for something. So this part basically says it's not a security because it's not an investment. That's obvious. But it's also saying that your token has to be traded for something up front. So you're not giving people tokens for an exchange or waiting on something, a product to be made. It's more like you're giving them tokens to be used for something on your platform, and that is the primary use of the token. As previously, the seller also cannot have a repurchase agreement or an agreement to find buyers for the token. So this is also getting kind of common at buybacks, especially exchanges. So this kind of highlights that to be considered a utility token, at least in Wyoming, you have to be actually a utility in a way. Like the token must be usable on the platform, and it must primarily be used for the platform, not really incentivized or advertised as a token that may gain value. So if we see a lot of utility tokens that aren't trying to be utility tokens in a technical, wordy way and actually trying to fit the framework that Wyoming has established, you'd expect these utility tokens to be fairly short range that they fluctuate between, and for these tokens to actually be used regularly on whatever platform that's released on them. And this guideline that Wyoming has dished out really complements the things that the CFTC and SEC were saying about how they don't see anything that's currently out. And this was like 2-3 weeks ago, so by now it could have changed, but they were saying how they don't see anything that's currently out that isn't a security token. And I'd say that for any company that's looking to actually be considered a utility token, that this is a decent framework to operate by. And while I kind of described the to be traded for something clause to be more as an ongoing use, I guess you could have a utility token that's just can be traded for something that isn't as consistent or consistent purchase as I have in my head for what a utility token would be. But they're still kind of muddy on what's a utility token versus security from a regulatory standpoint. And as we see more states in particular kind of throw their 2 cents in, we'll know better what consists of a utility token and a security token. Vitalik has a new idea for ICOs, and it's being tested. The new model is called DICO, which is a decentralized autonomous ICO, and decentralized autonomous initial coin offering, and it's being proposed and utilized. Instead of the team getting all the ICO funds directly, investors establish a budget for the team, and they will basically drip funds from that pool of ICO funds. So the project is being deemed a failure by a majority of the investors. They can vote to reimburse themselves and return the remaining tokens proportionally back to the investor pool. So there's also a mechanism for emergency injections of funds just in case the monthly budget fails to cover expenses for a certain month. So this is really a totally different way of approaching ICOs, since there's a monthly budget is being formed in a democratic way by a pool of investors that's crazy in a way. But that's what they're setting out to do. So the team is actually locked out of funds, and it's not kind of like, we swear we're not going to touch this. It's not like we actually can't touch this without investors approving it. So that's a very interesting concept. The fact that it's super democratic in a way would be suspicious, well, would be skeptical about how well it works. But it's very understandable considering how wide-reaching and necessary a democratic system would be for a lot of crypto governance. So this is something that we definitely just have to wait and see how it progresses. I think at a large scale, if there's not kind of a vetting process for investors and projects, that this could be a big disaster. But on a platform that kind of vets projects and one that kind of has more educated investors on, I could see this definitely working out. Finland mandates cold storage, public auctions for seized Bitcoin. So Finland is establishing a standard for utilizing cold storage for all seized crypto, and they must be also sold at an auction and not on exchanges. So I think this is going to be one of the best practices that governments decide to go through, because the US has already been doing similar things. All seized funds are sent through an auction. You can probably not expect this out of more shady countries. Bulgaria comes to mind. They seized a decent sack recently, but you haven't really heard anything about an auction yet. But this definitely seems like the standard protocol for many countries, and if you are involved in shady things and it gets seized, don't expect to ever see your coins again. I think you probably wouldn't be able to see them again even if you were proven innocent. Dutch bank ING says crypto exchange Bitfinex is an account holder. So one bank has finally confirmed their relationship with Bitfinex. This has been a big contention point against the argument against Bitfinex. They're saying that they have a bank, so it couldn't be backed by anything. Well, this is untrue now, and rumors that they also had a Polish bank. That one's not confirmed, but just a heavy rumor that you hear. So this just means that the worst case scenario is going to be avoided, in my opinion, but it still doesn't mean Bitfinex is completely clean or that Tether can be trusted. It just kind of signifies that the absolutely worst fact of they can't, they're running heavy fractional reserves is kind of dismissed. I mean, it's still a possibility that they're doing a system kind of like that, but all will not be lost. At least they're not operating solely on tethers, is what this connection with the bank is telling us. Tesla cloud hit by crypto mining malware attack. So these hackers are getting smart because they hit Tesla with a malware attack, and they cover the tracks up well, messing with the logs and such, and also use very minimum CPU, so it didn't seem any different from standard operations. So if you run a business, stay aware that this is going to be a real threat in the future, if not already now, of hackers being this sophisticated and planting crypto mining software and just taking a little of your processing power, graphics card power, to make a profit on a scale. I mean, you wouldn't be the only person affected. They'd get as many as possible, but run them at a very small amount just to run undetected. Venezuela claims 735 million raised in first cryptocurrency sale. So it begins a contender against the U.S. hegemony. Venezuela is standing with crypto, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out. Considering if the petro actually does very, very well, and it's not just Maduro kind of showboating for no reason or playing up the reality, this could be a very bad thing for Westerners at least, considering you could definitely expect a very hostile response by the U.S. if sanctions can be circumvented by using crypto. And the petro just might prove that and give Venezuela and Venezuelans options in actually being able to live a decent life again. Cryptocurrency, Neo and SETL are added to eToro platform. So this is a big thing because more exposure for these two coins, especially the fact that Neo is launching all those, having all these ICOs launch off their platform now, and SETL is growing rapidly. If you are a long-time listener, you'll recall that Michael Collar kind of called that SETL was going to get all this hype, all this popularity behind it, and grow into something great. So stay listening to the interviews because we really have some people with foresight on and hot takes. And finally, the main story here, the main story that will be going on for a while as a gloating mechanism: Bitcoin fees sink down to 6-month low, and it's undermining Bitcoin Cash. So Coinbase and Bitfinex have embraced SegWit, and because of this, it has drastically, and I mean drastically, decreased the transactions that are just kind of idling in the memory pool. This is a pretty big blow to Bitcoin Cash, and not only that, with the fact that Lightning Network is still in its infancy and really not adopted at any kind of scale, like even smaller than SegWit. Once you see these second layer solutions really come to fruition, fees might be really, really low in the future, and Bitcoin can return to being something that's actually useful for making payments or buying and selling things, rather than just having the notion of being purposely for speculation, like this purpose only for speculation or store value. So overall, this is very good and very healthy for Bitcoin to return to its true roots. And it's been it for today. Kind of tired, and as always, tune in next time on Monday. Yeah, Monday. And don't also look out for these interviews. I've been doing a lot of them lately. I think you guys will enjoy this little next batch that's coming out in the next month or two. A lot of interesting people, a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different perspectives and applications that you yourself can kind of get ideas off of if you're trying to do something blockchain related. So stay tuned for that. There's a lot of interviews coming up. They're going to be on the regular kind of posting schedule. There might be more than you think in the next 3-ish weeks, depending on how busy I get and if I have to substitute an interview for a news episode. But yeah, anticipate these interviews, and I'll see you next time, next Monday on the Crypto Spendthrift podcast.